fucking scoot back a little so I guess fucking so I don't punch the microphone.
Hey, come listen to our podcast, yeah. Please listen, it's a hitch. If you don't listen to our podcast, yeah, then you are a bitch.
Maybe that one.
All right, welcome to Filmoscopy, a quaint little podcast where usually three friends get together, talk about a movie one of them picked. Well, one of today's host and usual host, always host, Owen, is dead. So he is no longer here with us, and we are actually opening up applications for people to join the podcast. If you like to talk about movies and you don't mind to be completely dominated by two superior Southern gentlemen, this went off the rails. Now, Owen today is he just couldn't do it. I think they're celebrating his girlfriend's father's birthday, so he's actually here in the great state of Tennessee, and so he couldn't record with us today. Anywho, I am Lance, today's host, and I'm joined by Cody, the not guest host, co-host. Yeah, co-host Cody. Say something, Cody.
Hello.
Yeah. And before we start today's episode, I just gotta let out one good. How about those Chiefs? Because this episode will come out way later after the Chiefs Super Bowl victory.
Oh, yeah.
But we're recording it 2 weeks. Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
But this episode's been recorded 2 weeks after the Super Bowl, so a little peek behind the curtain for the kayfabe. This is where we're at in real time. Yeah. So, Cody, I missed last week's 2 weeks ago's episode about the Demon Barber of Santa Clara, or whatever it's called.
Fleet Street.
And, oh yeah, my bad. And, when I was laying in my bed and wasn't feeling good, I was like, I need to watch this movie to record the podcast. And I looked at images of it, and I go, nah.
I think Owen and I talk about it on the episode, but we were both kind of like, yeah, Lance probably wouldn't have liked this movie anyway, because it's like, it's not even a musical it's not a musical light. You know what I mean? Like, it's not one of those films. It's like there's a bunch of dialogue and then you get a song and then a bunch more dialogue. It's like a straight up musical. So like, there's way more music than there is just normal dialogue scenes. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
we both pretty much agreed that you probably wouldn't have liked it. I mean, even though like the story itself, I think is something that you would probably be into if it wasn't a musical, because it's very like classic horror drama type storytelling, right? But just the way that it's packaged, I don't think you would have been into it. So no big deal.
Yeah, probably so. I mean, it had great Rotten Tomato reviews. I'm like, I saw the musical part. Like, I'm just not super into this right now. I just couldn't take it at that moment. So I was like, hey guys, I'm not gonna be able to do it, and I rolled back over and went back to bed. That's just I just wasn't feeling good physically. Like my stomach was all fucked up and everything. So
Gotcha.
Anywho, well, Cody, today's movie is a sequel, and to quote that little weirdo in one of the Scream movies, I think it was Scream 2, he says, sequels are always less than the original. And we have covered some sequels that have been debated if they're better than the original or not. Now, I think I could be wrong. You agreed with me that you thought the original Godfather was better than Godfather 2?
Yeah, I think so, if I remember correctly. Yeah, because Godfather 2 was like, it just wasn't as cohesive because of the way it told its story.
Yeah. So I remember we agreed on that, and Owen and I think Alex, my buddy, from Idaho. But I was about to say buddy from another mother, but that's not how it works. Brother from another mother. And father and family, and the only things that really connects us is the Dollar General heritage and German blood.
Nutter from another
Um,
butter.
oh, Cody's got German blood too. We're all from the motherland, I guess. But no, yeah, because I remember Owen was like, he thought that movie part two was way better. I'm like, man, I just really like part one story. Like ultimately, I don't think you can go wrong with either movie. But if I'm gonna pick one to rewatch, and they're both 3 hours long, I'm gonna pick the original. I have. I wouldn't say it's a controversial take with people that have seen the movie. It's definitely still a hot take. I mean, I think that Psycho 2 is better than Psycho, because Psycho 2, I mean, it's in color versus the black and white, and Psycho 2 is really built around the reveal at the end of the movie. And Psycho 2, you go into knowing that Norman is a killer, and is he just killing people? And it turns into almost a whodunit thriller, but also it's a tragedy with him trying to hold on to the sanity that he's achieved. And I think that Psycho 2 is a better movie, and Quentin Tarantino agrees with me. And I mean, I'm not. I think sequels can be good movies. I think sequels can be better than the originals. I think a lot of people would say Empire Strikes Back is better than A New Hope, or as it was first released as Star Wars. Trying to think if there's like another sequel that, like, I mean, I'd rather watch uh, Doctor Sleep compared to The Shining, especially the Stanley Kubrick movie, just because I don't know. I like the story a little bit better.
Spider-Man
Doctor Sleep.
2. The Sam Raimi Spider-Man 2 is better
Yeah,
than Spider-Man 1.
yeah, I'd say so. Trying to think. I mean, it's not a part two, but it's technically a part two since they were like it was directly released after it. I would say Avengers Endgame is better than Infinity War, but they go together like a really good story, you know.
Mm-hmm. Dark Knight
But
over
that's
Dark Knight
really
over Batman Begins.
yeah. I would have to venture out to say I know those movies aren't super popular because everybody thinks Sony is inept, but I think Venom Let There Be Carnage is better than Venom because it's more entertaining and you have more symbiotes and that's what you want to see. Um,
Some of that
and we'll see how the Batman
symbiosis.
2 symbiosis. I will see how like the Batman 2 does compared to the Batman. Hopefully, it's a less runtime at least. Um, I think Superman 2, like the original Superman movies, was more well regarded than the first Superman. I feel like
Like that Christopher
I
Reeves
could be
one.
wrong there, but yeah, the Christopher Reeve one, and all the first three. I know the first two were directed by the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that directed all four Lethal Weapon movies, and he's done a bunch of shit. Um, but so you have there is some examples of Friday the 13th Part Two is 100% better than Friday the 13th Part One, the original. And that's like especially for something that kicked off the franchise. The first movie is kind of skippable, as we're going to go into. Like after this movie, after the next set of movies that we go through, like I'm gonna start up the Friday the 13th movies with you guys. Probably broken up a little bit with like I don't know the Mummy and the Mummy Returns and shit like that. Movies I kind of want to cover as well. So you do have a lot of movies out there that can surpass the original. Because a lot of people look at the original, especially classic movies, like they nailed it, and then when everybody comes back for the second one, it just doesn't quite click sometimes. And which I mean, either that's to the fault of the people who wrote it, directed it, or maybe it's like the expectations of the fans. Like it can never live up to what the head canon does going forward. Speaking to the Dark Knight, I think that movie, like that movie was made or broken with Heath Ledger, and unfortunately Heath Ledger's passing. I do think that everybody kind of thinking that was his last movie, even though there was one more movie that came out after his death. Um,
Yeah.
that intrigued everybody. You know, and because I think there was like some like people had this supernatural tie to that movie, thinking like, oh, he died because of this movie's preparation, because of this movie and shit like that,
Mm-hmm.
and all that kind of sad. It's like sad to sit there and kind of like tie it, because the first Batman Begins is a good movie, but if you look at the box office, I mean, it only made like $500 million, so it didn't make. I mean, that's a lot of money, but the money they put into it, I think the budget was like $100-something million, so they really didn't make that much money. And then that movie, the Dark Knight, becomes the first superhero movie to cross $1 billion. So it's like for that to like exceed expectations is pretty good for a comic book movie. And then of course you have, like I said, The Godfather 2, which everybody universal acclaim for. And I have to say, today's movie destroys all expectations, which is the tagline on the Blu-ray case.
Would you say it annihilates
No, wait.
them?
No, it says destroy all expectations. I got the Blu-ray case right here. I have to say this movie, Cody, outdoes the original. What do you think?
I don't agree.
Well, everybody, if you've seen the title and have wondered why it's taken me 10 minutes to get to this point, today we are covering, so far, our last stop in my like Mortal Kombat cinematic experience with the fellas, because we've covered every movie that's come out. This is 1997's Mortal Kombat Annihilation. This movie has a 4% on Rotten Tomatoes and a audience score of C+. Yeah, it's pretty rough.
I'm
I
surprised,
do
I'm surprised
have.
it even has a 4%. To be honest with you,
I think a lot of people like the over the top action. That's the only positive part. It's so bad, it's goofy
yeah.
type of deal. As like the common theme. Um, but yeah, I'll go ahead and get into a quick history with this movie, because this movie came out when I was 9 years old. So as when you're a kid, concept of time doesn't really register. You know, as you get older, concept of time really doesn't register, because as a kid, it goes too slow. When you get older, it goes too fast, and you kind of forget what you've done like 2 days ago. But I don't remember seeing, like, when the first movie came out in '95. I don't remember seeing previews of it on TV. The first time I ever saw a preview of it was watching a VHS, and either it was a VHS of The Mask or Dumb and Dumber. I'm pretty sure it's Dumb and Dumber, that had the preview to Mortal Kombat Mortal Kombat on it. I'm like, oh my god, they're making a Mortal Kombat movie. I'm like, I had nothing. I'm not looking at like Time magazine or the TV Guide magazine and seeing advertisements for this stuff. The little TV Guide book that used to sell every week. I'm not seeing any of that shit. So I didn't know they were coming out a Mortal Kombat movie. So that movie comes out. I get it on VHS. I didn't go see it in theaters. I get it in VHS, and I'm so fucking happy with it. I'm like, I wore the fuck out of that case just looking at the case. And about, I would say, 2 years, maybe even less time, or more time than that, my grandmother had bought me the first Mortal Kombat movie. Well, she got me the second one. I didn't know there was a second one coming out. I didn't see previews for it. It blew my fucking mind. I'm like, you mean there's a part 2? What? I was excited, and then what she had got me was, I don't know if Blockbuster had a surplus of these movies or something like that, or maybe this was starting to get into the part where you're starting to get DVDs, so they were trying to get rid of some of their inventory of VHS tapes, because this is '97. You know, CDs are coming out around '90, like more prevalent around like '97, '98, and DVDs are starting to come out too. So I got this, and it had a Blockbuster Please Rewind blue strip on the bottom of the tape, but it was the actual Mortal Kombat box. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I watched the movie, and as a kid, I kind of liked it. I hated the ninja costumes, you know, because I'm just a kid. I don't have much expectations. I'm 9 years old at this point. I'm a year away from seeing the Ultimate Warrior make his last return in professional wrestling in '98 in WCW, and you know, I'm not even watching football on a regular basis at this point. I couldn't tell you what I was watching. Maybe Power Rangers that I could possibly remember. I mean, other than these old TV shows I watched at my grandma's house. her and my great grandmother were babysitting me. But so I had this tape and I watched it. It wasn't as good as the first one, obviously, as we'll get into. But as a kid, but I still didn't mind it. I thought Shao Kahn was a little small, and the CGI in it doesn't look quite as bad on a VHS tape versus high def Blu-ray or streaming service quality. So the CGI didn't bother me back then because it's like, oh, okay, because it's on VHS. It's not like 100% clear picture anyway, you know. And yeah, so that's my first experience with this movie. It was then, and I've watched it plenty since then. Like I said, I had the VHS of both Mortal Kombat movies. I had the VHS of the Mortal Kombat animated movie, The Journey Begins, which is like 25 minutes. It's not very good either. But I enjoyed it as a kid, obviously, because it's Mortal Kombat. I'm a kid. And then I got the DVDs of both Mortal Kombat movies. And then I got the Blu-rays of both Mortal Kombat movies when they were like separate cases. And the Mortal Kombat movie I got has that animated movie on it as a Blu-ray special. I'm like, oh, that's funny. So that's my experience with this. And I wanted to make sure I picked it just for a completion's sake, because I had Cody and Owen and Alex. We reviewed Mortal Kombat 2021, and then we did Mortal Kombat 95, and then we've done all the Legends movies that have come out, which is 4 of them, I think.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, there's one more left, and they got Mortal Kombat 2 coming out this year. So, or maybe it's coming out in 2025. So, like, that'll be our next, this is technically our next to last stop in Mortal Kombat cinematics. But yeah, so that was my first experience with this movie. Cody, I'm gonna turn it over to you. What was your first experience with this movie?
I can't remember exactly when it was the first time was that I saw this one. It had to have been in my adult life, so it has to be in the last 14 years or whatever. But I just can't remember exactly. I've only ever seen this movie fully one other time before today, and
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty rough, man. This movie is, man. I wish I could say like, there's like 2 or 3 highlights of this movie that I will talk about once we go through it that I think are pretty decent, or at least good camera work. But man, this movie is just, you have 3 actors from the first movie return, and the third actor wore a mask in the first movie, and he wears a mask in this movie and takes off the mask.
Yeah,
so
I
you
was
wouldn't
gonna.
know if it was him or not.
That's one of the things I wanted to ask you because I know for sure that's not the same guy that played Raiden in the first one, right?
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And I want to say maybe Sonya is a different actress.
No, she is. The only 3 people, I'll let you know this right now. The only 3 people that returned, other than the producer of this movie and the director, who was the director of cinematography in the first movie, were Robin Shou, Liu Kang, Talisa Soto as Katana, and Keith Cook. He played the human, obviously, reptile ninja in the first Mortal Kombat movie. He plays the younger Sub-Zero Kuai Liang in this movie.
Oh, you mean
That's the only people.
in the New Jersey Sub-Zero.
Yeah, well, he kind of looked like that. I mean, they did the best they could to keep his hair slicked back and all that. And the scar looked pretty decent on his face. When it comes to special effects, that's like the best it looks like in this movie. But yeah, that's the only 3 people that returned. Christopher Lambert was asked to return, but he was already committed to doing another movie called Beowulf, and that movie was, I believe, produced by the same guy, but it came out in '99, and I think he was also saying to a fan one time that he wasn't a fan of the script. And Christopher Lambert is the guy who played Raiden in the '95 movie. He's also the Highlander. Lyndon Ashby didn't want to come back because he saw that he was going to die in the first 5 minutes of the script. So he was like, I'm not coming back for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure why Sonya didn't. They just kind of recast Jax. Jax only had a small part in the '95 movie anyway.
Yeah.
And that gentleman ended up passing away not too long after that. Let me look that up because I don't want to sit there and like put out false information when I have access
Fake
to this
news.
bullshit called the internet.
Fake news.
Fake news. I'm coming back for the presidency.
Little Lance Corber, always with the fake news. Hey, come on, everyone! Buy my new tennis shoes.
Damn, I only have a thing. So Gregory McKinney played Jax in the first movie. Jax spelled with 2 X's because they fucked up his name. In this one, well, it's funny. It's not funny. In this one, Jax is played by Lynn Williams, whose nickname was Red. Him and the guy who played Motaro, was Darren McBee, were both American gladiators. So they had some experience with each other, like professionally on that point.
Yeah.
And like you said, James Remar came in as Raiden. Sandra Hess, no bra, was wearing Sonya Blade. I was playing Sonya Blade, not wearing Sonya Blade, but those nipples were hard as a blade in some scenes. Brian Thompson, who's had a good run with Star Trek, The Next Generation, played Shao Kahn. Rainier Skolin played Shinnok. He was a German actor. And I'm not going to lie to you, he wasn't very good in this movie. That didn't feel like Shinnok to me. It just felt like... It's really weird because Shinnok was taller than Shao Kahn. It's like... I'll get into that in just a few minutes. At least this guy named Lightfoot played Nightwolf.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, he's a born Native American. He has Cherokee descent on his father's side. And, I couldn't even pronounce that other side. The Northern Mexican indigenous. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Fuck. My bad, people. Descent on his mother's side. So they actually had somebody come in and play a Native American, like playing Nightwolf, and he was only a small part. And then you had some guys who were stunt coordinators playing the ninjas. J.J. Perry is Cyrax, Scorpion, and another character in this movie. And Dana He, who was the stunt double for Talisa Soto as Katana, played Melina in this movie. And Dana He also plays, and she's a Olympic, she's a gold medalist in the 1988 Summer Olympics in Taekwondo. And she also plays in the Mortal Kombat Conquest show that follows this movie. Well, I mean, follows. It comes out in 98.
Yeah.
Into 99, and it's a prequel to the first movie. And then, like I say, Keith Cook is Sub-Zero. He was a reptile in the first movie. And then you have Terrible Baraka and shit like that. And there's Ermac, which Ermac is like, it's not really... It has no characteristics of Ermac other than he's a red ninja. Like they don't display any of his powers. And
Baraka's in this movie?
You don't remember the Tarkatan guys with swords on their arm that Liu Kang was fighting when he was rescuing Katana?
I must have zoned out on that moment.
Yeah, real quick, Google on your phone just so you know for reference, Baraka Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Yeah, I must have really
just so you see an image of that.
Because when you said Baraka, I was like, is that what that ugly CG dragon creature? I didn't know if they did a reptile like they did with the first one, where it's like, oh yeah, we got Baraka in this movie, but it's not who you think it is. Yeah, I must have zoned out. I did not even remember this.
Yeah, it's when it's right before Shiva gets crushed by Katana's little cage. He has a fight with Baraka and a couple of Tarkatans.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it's a bad rubber suit, like real bad.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I see that.
Just
from this picture.
Just from the image, I know. And
which fits with the production quality of this movie, because I did want to say the production quality of this film is like, it comes off like an episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers at a lot of points.
Which is so strange because like the production of that the budget for this movie, I think, was more than the first movie. And
Well,
the
I
first
mean,
movie looked good.
it makes sense because they put all that CG in there, but the problem is the CG is awful because this was made in the freaking mid '90s, and for the most part, movie studios hadn't really figured out how to do CG very well.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
unless
like I said, I looked it up. It's 20 million for Mortal Kombat, 30 million for Annihilation was the budget.
hmm.
It's rough. Like
What did it bring
everything
in the
CGI
box
in this movie's
office?
bad. Well, the first Mortal Kombat movie brought in from a worldwide box office. Whoops, look it up. I was looking up the Sindel actress, and let me just tell you something, mommy. Um, I don't know why. I don't know what it is. The fuck about that character. Holy shit. So the first movie, as reported on Wikipedia, of course, it is sourced. The budget was 20 million. The box office was 122.2 million,
Mm-hmm.
which was the highest grossing video game movie of all time at that point.
Yeah.
And then Annihilation had a budget of 30 million, and I've also seen it reported as 40 million, but I think it's 30 officially. Box office was 51.3 million.
Shoo.
So ultimately, the first movie, if you just go by the general rule of doubling the salary of the movie for advertisements and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So first movie was 20 million, it made 40. Let's just bump everything up. So if the first movie took 30 million, that's not reported. It needed 60. And the second movie had 30, so it needed 60. So let's say 40, so 80. So 80, that's 140 million dollars. And the first movie made what, 120, like 120 million. This movie made 50. So it, like, both movies, they probably cleared like 20 to 25 million dollars if we're just going to do like that general rule.
Yeah.
So I mean, not bad. I mean, this movie really sunk it. I think this movie was kind of like the cherry on top for overexposure for Mortal Kombat at this point, because Mortal Kombat, you got to think, the first game came out in '92, and this movie came out in '97. That's a huge fucking like explosion of media in 5 years, because at that point they've had. So this movie came out in '97, so they've had 3 mainline titles, 2 expansion games, but they were still released as separate titles. So you had Mortal Kombat 1, 2, 3, Ultimate 3, and then Trilogy. And then in '96, you also had Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero come out, which was a prequel game, but a side quest game. And then you had Mortal Kombat 4 come out in '98. So within the next year, you had, so it was 5, 6, you had 7 games coming, and then 2 movies. You've had a cartoon show that only lasted 13 episodes come out. You've had a prequel live action show that's lasted like 26 episodes that gets released the next year. So within 6 years, you have all that blown up from one single game that came out in '92. It's pretty impressive, but you can also see it kind of, the brand was eating itself at that point from overexposure.
Yeah.
So I can see like that kind of thing. As a kid, I mean, I don't see that shit as overexposure. I fucking love it. I wanted more of it. I just wanted to see more Scorpion and shit like that. Anytime Scorpion was on there, I was like, oh man, it's like fucking yeah. But or I should say Hanzo Asashi, but it's Scorpion, and at this point, everybody knows it. But yeah, so it's kind of like my first experience. I didn't know if this was a first blind watch for you, and I know Owen has made jokes about this movie, so I'm pretty sure he has seen both these movies before we had reviewed them, the '95 and this movie.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's unfortunate. Like I said, that first movie, I mean, they didn't think it was going to be successful. Even the director missed the premiere. He went to the Bahamas to have a vacation for a week because he was so petrified it was just going to sink his career before he got started. And the first movie, I know you said you weren't a big fan of it, but it wasn't that bad. I still love the first movie. The only parts about that movie that are not the best are, like the CGI reptile, but also that Scorpion Sub-Zero just henchmen. Whereas it's funny because the Mortal Kombat 2021 movie, which I like too. But everything else about that movie's boring, but the Scorpion and Sub-Zero parts to me. It's funny. It's like the '95 movie. They nailed everything but Scorpion and Sub-Zero, and the 2021 movie they nailed Scorpion and Sub-Zero, Hanzo Hasashi, and Bihan at this point for both movies. But everybody else was kind of like an afterthought. I don't know if that makes sense to you,
Yeah, I
but
get
that's
it.
how it felt for me.
Yeah, I mean that first movie. Another issue I had with it was, I mean, it was pretty much just like with this movie. Anything that was CG just didn't look good. But
Yes.
its CG reptile was a big problem for me. And then plus, like I think that the weird scorpion spear being like alive or whatever was kind of goofy. And then I'm very happy to see they doubled down on it in this one. It's like,
Of course. Yeah, they weren't backing off of that.
yeah, it's like now we got two of them coming out of one of his hands or sleeves or whatever.
It's fucking hilarious. And what's really funny, it's like, I really wish that wasn't part of the shtick they picked, but they did pick it. But yeah, the 2021 movie, I've seen some people say that, I mean, it's as bad as Annihilation, and that is not true whatsoever. I think when you have an inexperienced cast like that and not a good soundtrack that Mortal Kombat movie had, because 2021 soundtrack wasn't that good. It kind of feels flat in most parts, and maybe that's just me because I'm a Hanzo Hasashi Scorpion fan. Like, that's my guy. So anything that doesn't have him in it, I'm gonna be bored with. It's like watching an old wrestling show. If it doesn't have Ultimate Warrior, I'm just gonna be bored.
Yeah.
So maybe that's on me. But that 2021 movie, that first 8 minutes where it's just Bihan versus Hanzo and Hanzo and his family getting killed, is the best part of that movie, and it actually looks like pretty cinematic. Like, it's pretty good. Then the rest of the movie's kind of, and then when Scorpion comes back and fights Sub-Zero at the end of the movie, even though Cole Young's in the scene, it's still pretty good. So, but the rest of that movie is kind of like, take or leave. It's not, it's there. It's not offensive. Whereas this movie can be offensive at some points, and not because it's being culturally insensitive to somebody. It's just not pretty to look at.
Yeah.
At all.
And quite frankly, not a good representation of Mortal Kombat. I mean, a lot of the characters in this movie don't. And I know I'm sure we've talked about this before, but like at this point in the game series, there wasn't really a ton to go off of as far as like building characters, but it's still like, this is like, for example, it has to be the least intimidating looking Shao Kahn ever for this franchise.
Well, when we get to that part, I got something funny. Not funny, but it's just kind of ironic.
But
yeah, I mean, that first movie, you see Shao Kahn at the end in the skies. He's the one that destroys the temple. He goes like, "You weak, pathetic fools! I've come for your souls."
Yeah,
and you're like, "Oh man, Shao Kahn gonna be huge or whatever. This is so fucking cool." And then you see him, and it's just kind of like, oh.
I mean, he's like
the camera work. The camera work does not do this guy any favors either.
No,
like they shoot him.
Him and Raiden are like the same
level
size, basically.
Yes, dude. It's okay. God, what's his name? I gotta look this dude up real quick. Not Louis Tan, but the guy who plays Sub-Zero in Mortal Kombat 2021. Where it's gonna kill me real quick. 2021. Let's see here. Joe Taslim. Dude's a fucking incredible martial artist, and I think he's a pretty good actor, and I think he did obviously great as Sub-Zero. But that dude can't be like taller than like 5'6", 5'7", if we're being completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they shoot him in that movie, like everybody else is standing on level ground, but he's standing on a step where he looks like either he's just a tad taller than them, or he's the same level as them. But they don't show his legs when he's standing there.
Yeah.
You only see his legs once, but then you just see him there. So they shoot him at a level where you think he's taller than he actually is. And this guy, for Shao Kahn, I mean, he's the same size as Liu Kang. And that's not a bad thing, but Liu Kang is like, if you look at his quote-unquote his bios, and Robin Shu's probably 6 foot tall. This dude's only 6 foot tall. Shao Kahn's supposed to be like a bigger guy. And the way they shoot him, they don't do him any favors. They should be shooting him from an angle up where he looks taller.
Yeah.
So you have that kind of, at least that illusion. That's what they do. Like Andre the Giant, when he used to walk to the ring. Yeah, he's 7 foot tall.
Mm-hmm.
But they also, when they shot him, had that camera down looking up at him. So it looked even bigger on TV.
Yeah, and his size isn't even
So
the only problem with him. Like when he doesn't have the helmet off, he just looks like a dude, like a normal dude, and his personality kind of comes off like almost like a whiny brat, almost like he's trying to appease what he calls him dad, right?
Yeah, Shanaka's father.
Yeah, so he like Shinnok, he's trying to appease Shinnok, who is his dad, and like he even does like the whole like there's a line when Shinnok goes into the throne room and he's like, did you make Raiden beg for his life before destroying him? I think that's what he says. And he does this little corny ass flip to get down on level ground. And he's like, he couldn't be defeated or something like that. Well, whenever he goes into his command room where, you have like Motaro and Shiva and all the others standing around the table, he reuses the same line. Like he said, make them all suffer before destroying them, or make them all beg before destroying them, or something like that. And it just comes off like as someone who doesn't really have a clue what he's doing. You know what I mean? Like it comes off, he's just trying to like appease his father, which is like, what angle is that what they were going for? Or, I mean, it just he didn't feel threatening. So you already have a guy that's like the same size as a lot of the other characters. You have a guy that looks like a normal dude when he takes his helmet off, and he just kind of comes off like a wimp, really. So I don't know. It's just, he's not appealing as a villain in this movie.
No, I thought you're 100% right. I mean, it's miscast. I don't want to sit there and say this guy's a bad actor, because I think he's done other things that he's pretty decent in. He never was an A-list star or anything like that. I just think he's miscasted this. Dude has a head full of hair, so he shaved it for this role, so props to him. Funny story about him. I don't know how true it is because it's only from one angle. But the guy's name is Brian Thompson. And yeah. So he went to, I want to make sure. Yeah, he played several characters in the Star Trek franchise. So he did go to University of California in Irvine, so that is UCI. This isn't the big one, but his acting school, which I'm assuming that's what that is. He went to school with the guy who played Shao Kahn in the Mortal Kombat Conquest show, which is produced by Threshold Entertainment as well. And that guy is, hold on, I wish I could say, because that guy plays Raiden and he plays Shao Kahn in the show. And he got paid twice. He says, it's like, yeah, I got paid twice. Jeffrey Meek is the guy. And that guy also shaved his head, like, for the role. He has a head full of hair. I'm jealous. But he played Shao Kahn. He went to the University of California at Irvine as well. And he said they got into a fight and he broke Brian Thompson's nose. This is way before. This is like when they're in school. So, that's a funny little nugget that they both end up playing the same role later on. And he plays Raiden in the show, and he does a pretty good job. He's kind of like not Christopher Lambert, but he has a little bit of that humor that Raiden has. But as Shao Kahn, he always wears a skull like strapped around his head, and he's always kind of standing up. I mean, he's a taller guy anyway, but he's probably about the same height as everybody on the show. But he's always on an elevated platform, looking down at everybody. He comes down the steps. He just looks a little taller. I'm sure they have elevated shoes for him, but he looks more menacing as Shao Kahn than Brian Thompson in the show. And like I said, it's just unfortunate. Like that, the first movie came out in like August of '95, and they started shooting this movie in the first quarter of '96. So it's like January to March. You know,
Yeah.
so I feel I hate criticizing the actors in this movie because I don't think that they were put into a position to succeed. With the writer of this movie and the director of this movie, this was the first ever movie by this guy. I guess we'll go ahead and get in these little quick back behind the scenes before we talk about the movie. Let's see here. Oh, that's still Brian. That's the wrong one. So this guy's name, and I think Cody will recognize him. This guy's name was John R. Loyanetta. He directed Annabelle.
And he did what? Directed this movie?
Yeah, he directed this. This is his first movie.
Damn, so that's 2 bad movies. Dude,
Well, here's the funny part.
The first Annabelle movie is like the worst movie in the Conjuring franchise, for sure, in my opinion. I mean, I think it's really bad.
He's mainly a cinematographer, but he has directed some movies. Obviously, let's see here. He was a cinematographer.
Oh, wait, he was the first assistant camera operator on Commando.
Yeah, he was a cinematographer for The Mask. He was a cinematographer for Mortal Kombat. He was the director for Mortal Kombat Annihilation. He was a cinematographer for The Scorpion King, The Rock's movie, and that will be brought up again here in a few minutes. Let's see here. He's a cinematographer in Insidious, The Conjuring, Insidious Chapter 2. He was a director for Annabelle.
So I mean, as a cinematographer, he's not bad. It's the movies he's directed. He does not have a good lineup, because I see here, obviously, Annihilation was his first directed film. He didn't direct another movie for 9 years, and that was The Butterfly Effect 2, which is also not very good. And then it was another 8 years before he directed Annabelle, which is also not very good. Like these other movies, The Silence, Wish Upon, and Wolves at the Door, they're all horror films, but I've never seen any of them. Wolves at the Door I'd heard of before because it supposedly was like, it's one of those movies that like some people claim it takes place in the Conjuring universe, but it's not really a Conjuring movie. The only reason it's even considered as being in the Conjuring universe is because the detective from Annabelle is reused in that movie, so it has like a very loose connection, but it's not something that Warner Brothers actually like claims as being in the Conjuring universe. So
it also has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Go figure. Yeah.
Sometimes you're good at one thing and it's not going to work. He's taking some chances, but his movies have not worked out that he's directed. It looks
because
like.
being able to frame a shot is a lot different than like being able to actually direct a movie. Like, you have to not only direct the way that it's being shot, but you also have to direct the way that people are acting, and the set design and production and all that kind of stuff. So it's just like, it's not really, he doesn't seem like he's very good at it. So
it's rough. I feel bad for him. Like, man, I'm sure he's been paid handsomely.
Oh yeah, I mean, and like I said, even though Annabelle is not a good movie, it made a shit ton of money. So, which thankfully it did, because then that allowed them to make Annabelle Creation, which is probably the best movie in the Conjuring franchise, in my opinion. So,
yeah. But I don't remember seeing the first Annabelle movie. I feel like we did watch it, so it's. I mean, we had to. I think we watched all the Conjuring movies.
Yeah, it would have been the one where they're in a house and like their neighbors are murdered one night, and then they end up moving to like an apartment in the city, and
yeah, I remember that now. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as is the case in most of those movies, if there's a husband or a father in the picture, he's always at work. Like, he's never home. It's like in the first Conjuring movie,
the breadwinner of the household.
Yeah, it's like in the first Conjuring movie. It's like, well, family, I know that there's some crazy shit going on here, and there's 4 children and a wife at home, but I got to hit the road for a week, so I'll see you. You know, it's like, what the fuck?
That's just funny. Hey man, it happens, you know. It's what happened. Well, I guess like the movie's written by, well, it says screenplay, I should say, not really necessarily written. I don't know if anyone wants to claim it. Story by Lawrence Kasanoff, Joshua Wexler, who I'm assuming is a partner of Larry, and John Tobias is credited. I don't know how much he did work on this, and they probably just had to credit him because they took his story from the Mortal Kombat 3 storyline.
Oh, yeah.
And the screenplay was by Brent Friedman and Bryce Zabel. So, and John R. Leonetta had his brother Matthew F. Leonetta be the cinematographer in this movie. And music is by George S. Clinton, younger brother of Bill. Let's see here. That was a joke, Cody. That's not Bill Clinton's brother.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and the only other little nugget that they had, well, I don't know if it was ever in the works. I know Larry Kasanoff was hinting around to it, and I know Lyndon Ashby said that there was going to be a third Mortal Kombat movie that was kind of just going to ignore the sequel and pick up from the first movie, and he was coming back as Johnny. And he said this in like 2005. And Chris Casamassa, who played Scorpion in the first movie, said that they were trying to start shooting in 2005, 2006 for the movie. And they said Hurricane Katrina did damage to a shooting location in New Orleans they were going to use. I really don't think anything got that far. I just think they were either there was a few things getting set up, or this is shit that Larry was telling them, you know. And Larry was suing Warner Brothers or suing Midway Games when they were going bankrupt in 2009, saying that Mortal Kombat had a third film being like in the works, and he wasn't involved, but he had the contract with them. So there's a reason why Larry Kasanoff, he's not on the Wikipedia page, but if you watch the 2021 movie, he's an executive producer credit, which he does nothing for the movie. But he does get credit for that movie. I guess this is kind of like a contractual obligation type of deal. And I've said when talking about the 95 movie that listen to Larry, he has good information, but when he starts talking about like either future projects or future ideas, he feels like somebody who's just bullshitting. He doesn't really get it. So, I do appreciate the 95 movie. He gave us that. But he gave us a lot of other stuff. And like I said, I still go back and watch go back and watch this movie from time to time. And I go back and watch the cartoon. It's on YouTube in like a 4-hour block. They have all 13 episodes put together. And I have the Mortal Kombat Conquest show on DVD, and it's on Max. And I like that show. I don't like the origin story they give the Scorpion character. But I mean, he did do some good things. Yeah. But this movie, let's go ahead and get into it and get it over with. Because I do have a funny confession, not confession, but an observation about this movie and the Scorpion King. Um, well, yeah. So they do close-up shots. They do kind of like a Friday the 13th recap before the movie starts of the first movie, and they only show actors that are returning in this movie. Like they show Shang Tsung, and Kerry Tagawa wanted to come back for Mortal Kombat, but they're like, "Hey man, Shang Tsung's dead. Sorry." If he had come back for this movie, they had put him back in this movie. I think this movie would have been a whole lot better because he was great as a bad guy. But it also depends on what they would have wrote for him. I don't think that Kerry Tagawa Shang Tsung would have worked with this Shao Kahn because this Shao Kahn has like no charisma. He has like nothing going for him, as you said. So I don't think it would have worked. He would have outshined everybody on the bad guy side if he had come back. Well, so they show close-ups, and it's funny because You don't see Raiden, you don't see Johnny, you don't see Sonya, but like that one last shot as they're walking towards his temple from far away, you don't see their faces. You do see Liu Kang fighting Reptile and Shang Tsung, and you see him and Katana. And that's it for flashbacks. And it's funny because, Carrie's not coming back for this movie, so he's dead, but he wanted to come back, so they showed him. And Reptile is Sub-Zero in this movie. So that's why they only showed those 3 characters. But yeah, they come in, and instead of picking exactly up where it was at, the sky goes dark, and in the first movie, Shao Kahn comes in this big 3G, 3D looking visual, and he destroys his temple, and he talks down to the soldiers. Well, in this movie, all the extermination squad is coming down, and then this lightning bolt hits the temple, and it falls apart. It doesn't even fall apart the same way as it did in the first movie, so it's not even accurate. But so that just shows you that's what Shao Kahn like. And then he comes down, and you see a really bad Shiva, Ermac and Rain, Motaro, who, I mean, the CGI shots of Motaro we see later on are not great.
Yeah.
But at least you see him as a person. They just focus on the waist up, and they give you very minimal shots of his bottom half.
You get a couple
it's
shots
there, but
from
at least they give you.
You get a couple shots from overhead with like his tail whipping around and stuff at one point. But I was gonna say, out of like the monster type characters, I think Shiva is the one that has the best looking effects. Because like the others use way too much like CG.
Like I said, I think they did a decent job of Motaro with what they could do. To be honest with you, like that's one of the highlights I got to highlight, because what I'm going to say now, if you've seen the Mummy movie from '99, and then the Mummy Returns, and then the Scorpion King movie, which launched The Rock's career, the Scorpion King in the Mummy Returns, when he is half huge scorpion creature, half human, and it's that really bad PlayStation 2 CGI looking rock in the face that they have to interact with.
Yeah,
it's fucking terrible. And I think this Motaro, who's a half horse with a dragon tail, human, looks way better than that Scorpion King. So that's the one thing I will give them, that this movie somehow pulls off something a movie 4 years later couldn't pull off, which is this half human, half huge creature.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one positive I'll give this movie at this point. I think Motaro looks better than expected for being CGI, and thankfully, they cut, like when they're doing it and they show his face and they're panning down, they do that little glitch where you don't see his dick, but then you see his feet.
Yeah.
But I think they do that not necessarily so you don't see his dick, but to see his dick. No, I'm just kidding. I think they I think they do that because obviously it's a CGI shot, so they're like, okay, as long as I see a tail swinging behind him, we're fine. And then if you see him walking, like there's like 2 or 3 shots where you see him far away where he's like jumping, and he's completely CGI, and that looks rough. But then again, when they jump in that camera shot, I will give this director a good spot in that camera shot when he's fighting Jax at the end of the movie. You just see him standing up, and he's a big dude anyway, and you see that tail whipping behind him, which is probably a practical effect. So you don't have to see the rest of it. So I think that they did pretty good with what they had to work with. And with this movie, that's one of the few compliments it's going to get. Shao Kahn comes down, does this little announcement, the world was created in 6 days. In 6 days, it will be destroyed. And it's like, that's a weird blending of Mortal Kombat Christianity. But, oh well. I mean, I understood it as a kid. Now I'm just kind of like, it's weird if you got Elder God, but not a God. But, whatever. And there's something else later on with the Elder Gods. It's not consistent. I'll have to explain to you because I just found out about it last night. And then they give the reveal of Sindel, whose hair is not really gray, and she's not a very good actor, like this woman, especially for what she was given. Like, she has that bad line where Katana goes, "Mother, you're alive," and she goes, "Too bad you will die."
Yeah.
And
The way it's delivered is really bad.
It's really bad, but I'll tell you one thing. She's got some mommy energy for real. Yeah. Anywho, I mean, there's you got to take the positives with this movie, and I tell you what, she's not a good actress, or at least in this movie, but I can have a fantasy with her. It's fine. I mean, the actress, I've seen other pictures. Like, oh, okay, nice, nice, and like I've talked about this before. For some reason, I don't know what it is about Sindel as a character. I really don't know. Maybe it's because she's bad and she's a mom. It's like, hey, what's going on? You want to see my video game collection? You want to see my Ultimate Warrior action figures?
Yeah, I was gonna say that. You want to see my Ultimate Warrior action figures?
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder. That'd been really funny if you had said that. My bad. But I was already thinking that in my head. And I'm like, hey, Ultimate Warrior, I got a really cool Godzilla collection. Have you ever seen the Dragon Sword?
Oh,
I've seen my Dragon Sword. It's more like the Green Ranger in size, but it's okay. It's fine. It's it's pretty girthy. So, and like I said, God, I've talked about this before when we've talked about, like, hopefully one of these days we'll get to a point where we can finish the Pixel Chronicles first season on Mortal Kombat and then get this shit released, because I've talked about it. I absolutely hate with like a fire the Mortal Kombat 3 ninja costumes. That fucking blocky shit. And at least in this one, each one of the ninjas has like at least a unique design. Like to their blocks. Like Scorpion's blocks don't look like Sub-Zero's blocks on his little ninja crest. Mm-hmm. Rain and Sub-Zero's costumes are identical. One's blue, one's purple. And then Ermac is different. And then obviously you have Scorpion. I think Reptiles looks more like Scorpions, but you can't really tell because it's dark and shit like that. But I hate these ninja costumes, dude. Like, with a fucking passion. They look so bad. Even the first ninja costumes weren't the greatest, but they worked for the context of the Mortal Kombat movie. These just do not work. And I think that's what happens when you put, like, lifetime stunt actors in those type of roles, and they actually have to speak a little bit. Like, it just doesn't come off as well. Sub-Zero didn't say anything in the first movie, and Scorpion only said 4 lines, and that was all Ed Boon's voice, so it worked. This is it's rough, man. And, you had the guys that show up are like, Sindel's in the middle, you have Ermac, you have Rain, and you have Shiva, and you have Motaro. And then the good guys are Dollar Store Johnny Cage, Sonya, who looks completely different than what she looked at the end of the first movie. Also, Johnny Cage has another pair of sunglasses they really focus on. And they're like, oh yeah, you remember that the sunglasses bit? Y'all like that, right? Well, he's got sunglasses again. I'm like, where the fuck is he getting sunglasses at a monastery? Because that's the only place he's been since the end of the fucking first movie.
Yeah.
And you have Liu Kang with a different wife beater on. And then you have Katana and black leather. I don't understand why she's wearing black leather and not blue.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, she's running around the film the whole time looking like a dominatrix or something. Like, it's really weird.
I mean, that's what she wore in the first movie too. That's the sad part. It's like,
I don't even remember.
They didn't put blue on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Like, she wore black the first movie. Like, that's the same costume. She wears black in the fucking Conquest show, and on the cartoon, Defenders of the Realm, that are produced by Threshold, she wears black. She has a blue headband. I'm like, I don't know why she's not wearing blue. She isn't Noob Saibot. So, also, Noob Saibot's in this movie. Yeah, man, we're already an hour into this. I'm just trying to think about, like, what about the plot kind of stands out? Like, it follows loosely the Mortal Kombat 3 storyline that Shao Kahn's invading the Earth. Sindel, they don't say this in the movie, but it's hinted that Sindel is the key to stopping Kahn's plot, because Sindel is buried in Earthrealm, so Kahn's resurrecting her in Earthrealm so he can cross over and get her and merge the realms without Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the plot goes, you only have a few major points of the plot, because for the most part, you've got
Liu Kang is looking for Nightwolf.
Mm-hmm. And Sonya goes and finds Jax.
And Raiden's going to talk to the Elder Gods. Well, Liu Kang Katana run into extermination squads led by Smoke, which I would probably say is the best fight in the movie, just from the quick action. It's like Reptile had either the best or second best fight in the '95 movie with Scorpion. I like the Scorpion fight better because it's Scorpion. But when it comes to fast paced action, that Reptile fight is probably the best fight for a lot of people. I think Smoke Liu Kang is probably the best fight in this movie because the Smoke just is fucking fast and shit.
Yeah, I think I would agree because I guess they don't. I guess they do fight Cyrax, but I don't know.
That's Sonny and Jax, dude.
Yeah, I mean, that one's kind of like it's corny right off the bat because he lets go of those like spike bombs or whatever that kind of just like float in front of him for a second and then fly to the side. You know, it's like, oh man,
Well, I mean, I will say, and the thing is, Smoke in this movie is really just a gray colored sector. He doesn't have the harpoon coming out of his chest; it's just a missile.
Yeah.
In Cyrax, at least he has those bombs like he does in the game, and then he has what's supposed to be that net that brings you to him, but it just eats your skin off.
Yeah.
At least that's somewhat like what they're intending to do. Obviously, they don't nail it, but at least they do, get to it. Like he does have this power. Yeah. Well, so they get in these spinning balls that go through the Earth's core to go elsewhere. I think it's just an excuse to have something cool that they use CGI on, so that because Raiden's powers are diminishing, because Earthworm and Outworld are merging. As they merge, Raiden loses all his powers because he has no power in Outworld. So Liu Kang and Sonya get off. They're stopped, and they have a fight with Smoke. Smoke blows this bridge up that comes into play in a few minutes, and Liu Kang, I guess he wins the fight, but Smoke's about to shoot him with a missile, and then a Sub-Zero in an obviously different costume than the Sub-Zero from the first movie is, I don't know how to put it, sliding with his legs wrapped behind him on this ice thing that he created, and he froze Smoke. And then Liu Kang kicks Smoke off the balcony because the missile's stuck in his chest, and Smoke blows up. Mm-hmm. Kind of weird that Sub-Zero will do that to his best friend, but we'll go with it. First thing Liu Kang says is Sub-Zero, and this is just to establish the different identities of this one. He goes, "I killed you in the tournament." And Sub-Zero takes his mask off, and no qualms. He's like, "You killed my older brother." It's so stupid. Ninjas are supposed to be, pretty secretive. And he's just like, "I'm not my brother. Fuck you." First instant, he goes, "I killed you." He goes, "You killed my brother. Fuck you, asshole." And it's a very obvious, different costume from the first movie. These ninjas don't fit in with the ninjas in the first movie. They don't seem like the first movie happened 3 days ago. That Scorpion doesn't match with this Scorpion. That Sub-Zero doesn't look like he's the younger brother of the first Sub-Zero, and the costumes look like teetotal shit. But this is the universe I'm working in. And it takes them a minute to have Sub-Zero help them. And obviously, this Sub-Zero's a good guy. So he freezes this bridge over the bridge that Smoke blew up. And then all of a sudden, you hear the Scorpion music from the first movie. And you see a spear come up from the fog. It splits into two. There's two spearheads now. Whoa. Scorpion jumps up.
And they chomp at him, which is
it's real funny. It looks worse than the first movie. The CGI for those monsters just looks worse. It's amazing. And then they shot, which I'm pretty sure they shot in reverse, him jumping down like that. He jumps up. And then the spears are coming out of his wrong hand. They're coming out of his left hand instead of his right hand. And then Scorpion's like, "Get over here." And Sub-Zero makes an ice clone. And the heads explode. And that's it for the spears. And then they have a pretty bad fight. The music's pretty kick-ass in it. It's got kind of guitars and shit like that. But this, nothing against J.J. Perry. He also plays Sub-Zero in the Mortal Kombat Conquest show, which is a prequel show, so it's obviously a different Sub-Zero. But he's not good in this fight. You know, like if you go back and watch that first fight, and I've went back and watched it a couple times over the last like week because I just love that fight. That fight was like fast hitting, and Liu Kang is the fight choreographer in this movie. Robin Shou is,
Yeah.
and he was the fight. The thing is that his mentor was the fight choreographer for the Mortal Kombat movie in '95, but Liu Kang was the fight choreographer for the Scorpion and Reptile fights, the two best fights in that movie, because they went back and shot those, and he was the guy that was directing those fights. Well, evidently he directed all the fights in this movie except for this one. He wasn't on set that day for this fight, so that's why the fight just looks rough. Like the coolest spot in it is Sub-Zero knees Scorpion in the stomach, and Scorpion hooks his crotch and does a power slam on him and breaks the bridge in half at that point.
Yeah.
And like it's just a rough like fight, man. Just like the way when I'm watching it, the way Scorpion's like kicks are just not really good. Like when Scorpion does that reverse like Pele kick, when Sub-Zero has his foot and Scorpion goes to like reverse spin kick, and he misses him because Sub-Zero ducks. Like JJ Perry doesn't extend his foot out like he was actually trying to hit him. He tucks his foot back in for the fall, and then he kicks him in the face. It's just rough. And then like there's one scene in this that's a callback to the first fight or the first movie with Scorpion. Sub-Zero goes to kick Scorpion and he catches the foot, and then Scorpion flips Sub-Zero back. And Sub-Zero flips like he's gonna go for that front drop kick. And if you remember, you probably don't remember, you have to go back and see it. But Johnny Cage catches Scorpion's foot in the first movie, and Scorpion hits him twice, and then backflips out of it, spins, and does a front drop kick right to Johnny Cage's chest. Well, Sub-Zero does the exact same thing, but Scorpion does a front flip as he does a backflip and lands on top of him and starts kicking him. I'm like, okay, this is extremely like high wire, bad fight choreography, but that's a nice little callback to the spot. But the whole fight is just bad, and that Scorpion, like, I don't know what it is about him and Sub-Zero in this movie, because all the other ninjas don't have it. They both have widow peaks cut into their ninja mask. I don't know if you noticed that little Vegeta widow peak hanging off their mask on top. It bothered the fuck out of me in this movie. Because Scorpion's mask, his widow's peak's off center from the middle of his forehead. I'm like, oh my god. And I've looked at it like Sub-Zero and Rain have the exact same mask, exact same costume. One's just colored blue, one's just colored purple. I'm just curious. Maybe it was either made or maybe it's the same suit. There's no notes on it. I'm just curious if they just had a different color to put on it. Maybe just like a plastic accessory or something like that. I don't know. It's just bad. Liu Kang eventually finds Nightwolf, who's in the movie for 3 minutes. He throws an axe at Liu Kang to put him to sleep. Liu Kang discovers his animality. He almost has sex with Jade. It looks alright in this movie. Sonya, as you were talking earlier, she gets Jax. They fight Cyrax. It's a decent fight. The guy who plays Scorpion in this movie plays Cyrax, so nothing to write home about. I thought it was kind of cool. As the fire is around Cyrax and Sonya sees those that powdered chemical shit that catches on fire there, she grabs it and she does the kiss of death fatality, which is a nice little callback, but it doesn't look so good. But it's cool when she goes to blow it. That shit's cool, but when it turns into the CGI flame that specifically goes onto him instead of just all over the place, it's kind of goofy. Now, here's the part I'm going to have to explain something, because I was always confused about it. Raiden goes to talk to the Elder Gods, and there's 3 Elder Gods he's talking to. One fire, one water, one looks like it's wind. I'm thinking to myself, it's Fujin. So I'm already combining all this canon in my head. I'm like, okay, so Shinnok, after I've seen the movie a couple times, Shinnok is Raiden's dad and Shao Kahn's dad. And Raiden and Shao Kahn are brothers. Mortal Kombat 4 says Raiden and Fujin are brothers. So that means Shao Kahn and Fujin are brothers, and Fujin's dad is Shinnok too. Whoa. But so I thought that this wind god you see with the elder gods, I'm assuming it's wind because that's all you see. It looks like a bunch of fart clouds. Is Fujin. That, according to the Mortal Kombat Annihilation novel, and yes, it does exist, that's supposed to be Shinnok. So when Raiden's having this little conference asking his questions, it's Shinnok. And Shinnok says, we believe reuniting Katana with her mother is what's going to stop all this. But then the fire god chimes in. Only defeating Shao Kahn will keep this inevitably from coming back.
So Shinnok is there.
Raiden
Shinnok is there trying to set Raiden up, or basically get him to do what he's wanting to do anyway.
Yes, he told them, hey, let's follow Katana, follow Sindel. That's not what's actually going to work. Is ultimately what this is coming down to for him.
Yeah, because I was confused about that too. I was confused whenever I didn't realize that was supposed to be Shinnok, but I was confused.
Yeah, me neither, dude. I found that out today.
Yeah, I was confused. I'm like, isn't that what the villains are trying to? Isn't that what Shao Kahn's trying to do? Is reunite them? So like, why would one of the elder gods say that? I mean, it's not, and obviously it's not clear that that's Shinnok.
Yeah, 100%. That's the thing. Is like, well, it's just bad. It doesn't like I said, the novel's what says it. Shinnok is the one that says, like, Katana and reunite her mother will stop all this. So that's what Raiden holds on to. He gives up his immortality like he does. They say he does that in the Mortal Kombat trilogy booklet when he comes back in that game. Raiden just give up his immortality to fight with immortals and all stuff like that. But now he has a haircut. He's got Sting's haircut from 1993.
And once again, you have another major character in this movie that ends up just looking like a regular dude. Like, he looks like he's ready to just go grab his surfboard and go hit the waves. You know what I mean? Like,
in Venice Beach, California.
Yeah.
That's where Sting and Hulk Hogan are from, according to their bios.
He's like, what's up with your arms, man? Righteous.
Yeah, I know, dude. It's fucking just... It's rough. It's just like, okay. They go to Outworld. Now, Shao Kahn's losing his powers, and Sindel... They illustrate Sindel's screaming move where she can destroy buildings with it now from far away.
Like, I will say that was actually kind of cool for the character, because it's like one of the accurate things that they did in this movie.
Yeah, her costume needs a whole lot more skin. I agree. I gotta do something, people. Everybody's like, this guy's a creep. I gotta do something, man. This is kind of boring to talk about. I ain't gonna lie.
What a pervert. I gotta hear the next episode.
Yeah, go back and listen to something else I'm not on. We're talking about Sindel. Like, I get in Sindel, so I get like weak in the knees and the dick. I can't help it. Well, I guess I should say I get stronger in the dick, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, you get flaccid.
So they go to Outworld, and I don't know. They go to, because at this point, Outworld is still Katana's former home. It's not, Outworld wasn't a world that absorbed Edenia. Edenia became Outworld in this world because they hadn't really established that yet. They were going off the Mortal Kombat 2 because they hadn't established Edenia as a separate realm. So Katana and them, not Katana. Katana's captured, and she's like held in this little bird cage above where Shao Kahn and his generals meet up. And actually, Shao Kahn is the one that kills Rain in this movie. And they're originally, I guess, going to show Cabal and Stryker, but didn't have the budget for it. So they just name dropped them, and then Rain didn't kill them. And Shao Kahn, like you said, Shao Kahn was like, I have no use for excuses. Like, he does act like just a spoiled kid.
He throws
so he kills Rain, makes it. Yep, and it's real funny that gets reused a little later on. So Katana's held up in this cage. Liu Kang goes to rescue her. He fights a couple Tarkatans. they're not called Tarkatans yet, but they're Baraka and his henchmen. When he kicks Baraka off the bird cage, they reuse the footage of rain falling into the fire and the fire engulfing him, and just put Baraka noises in it. Yeah, it's bad, people. Raiden ends up. They have 3 reptiles shows up, so obviously there's more of his species still alive, but they don't. He only fights 2 of them. You don't know what happens to the third one. It's like they forgot about that part in this movie. So this is the part where I should say, a young stunt double starting his early work in his career, who's about to have a big break in 2 years, is in this movie. He's Raiden's stunt double. He plays one of the reptiles that he's fighting, and he plays one of the Tarkatans. It's Ray Park, a.k.a. Darth Maul. So that's a nice little nugget of somebody who would have a decent career going forward, because, you know, you have Star Wars, and then he plays Toad in the first X-Men movie.
Oh, yeah.
And all that shit. So he has, like...
His biggest roles, Darth Maul and Toad.
Hey, man, Darth Maul is like... Anytime you see Star Wars being advertised on Disney, you see a Darth Maul visual.
Oh, I mean, trust me,
obviously,
I love Darth Maul, but I'm just saying, you know, he's got Darth Maul, which is a huge character, but he's also got Toad from X-Men.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, though, it's like, it's one of those things, it's better than this movie.
Yeah. Oh, so, yeah, for sure.
You know. So he fights them, kills them. They ambush Sindel off screen, so she's knocked out. Then after everybody's had their way with her, Katana goes up to give her a kiss to wake her up. And I mean, Jax literally just gets done and goes, "Why I gotta be the last one?" And then Katana comes up and gives her a kiss on the forehead. And that's the only place that wasn't covered on Sindel. And Sindel goes, "Why is everything so salty?" "Oh, Katana." And, you know, she goes, "Mother," and she's like, and then you see this weird, like, lightning, weird sound effect, and then Sindel starts laughing. And Sindel's like, "Ha ha ha, you fool. I could never love you." And then it turns out that Jade has betrayed them, and she was a mole for Shao Kahn. So let's just skip to it. They escape because they were outnumbered. And Shao Kahn's mad at Jade.
Yeah, I was going to say Jade gets eaten by the dinosaur thing.
Yeah, and I forgot earlier, like, another fight that Sonya has is with Melina. And it's just Melina with, like, costume. They don't show her teeth because obviously they don't have the budget for that. And after seeing Baraka in his leather suit in this movie, I don't want to see Melina. So she, in a very obviously pink magenta costume that is Melina's, she goes, she attacks Sonya, and Sonya looks at her and she goes, "Katana?" with the question mark. She goes, "You wish." In the novel, Melina reveals to Sonya that she's Katana's half sister. So
no, but
you know,
this,
that's where
instead
that comes
in this
from.
they just mud wrestle.
Yeah, they don't look too bad. Yeah. I mean, there's some things they could have focused on the mud wrestling that for some reason they didn't for a Mortal Kombat movie.
Luckily, they cut that out.
It would have made it a little more entertaining.
Luckily, they cut that out of Annabelle.
Well, you know what's funny in this movie? I think the movie, it wasn't supposed to be a mud fight. Like, they were fighting in the mud and shit like that. They had this weird, like, rainstorm a week before they shot it, and the place they had picked out for this fight and they had set up the cameras and everything for was just soaked in this shit, and it would not dry up, and they just had to go with it. I'm pretty sure I heard that from Larry Cassenall. Because, you know, at this point when you're filming a movie, you can't really change locations. You're kind of stuck with what you got. Like, they had already scouted these locations, picked it out, put it in the budget, and they probably weren't going to get any more money.
No, the actress for Sonya
move it to a location.
The actress for Sonya was like, "Well, actually, Mr. Director, if we just go over the hill there, I think it's a little bit drier up there." And he's like, No. It's good. It's good.
I know it's okay. Hey, do you guys think we should add Sindel to this fight? I'm just asking.
And also in the next scene, your clothes are going to be completely clean. Just not a single smudge on
Oh, yeah,
them.
she's like, I gotta go find a river. I'm like, all right, first off,
Weren't you next to one?
that's that's an entire movie by itself. Is Sonya finding a river and then getting into it to clean off. Like, okay,
But it's
I could
crazy. It's
tell
crazy to me.
there's a
Like,
reason why.
it's like they shot it right, and I don't. They probably shot the following scene first or whatever. But like, it's so jarring because yeah, okay, I get it. She probably went somewhere and like cleaned up, but her clothes are like completely spotless too.
And her hair's feathered.
Yeah,
Like it's like blown back, like that that '90s haircut.
yeah, it's like
It's pretty funny. Yeah, I swear to God, that shit's hilarious, man. I just, I like I said, it's just real. It's just like that little throwaway line. I gotta find a river. I'm like, like a river, but I'm over here like, if the river is merging, if this world's merging with Outworld, what river are you bathing in? Is this a river of this baraka piss or reptile shit?
or
You're like, yeah, this is pure water. This is good H2O, baby.
it's the same stuff they use.
Um,
Yeah, apparently, it was made of the same stuff they used in those Tide magic pens or whatever.
No, it's the same thing that's in that Willy Wonka car wash in the original movie.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
all soaped up, and all of a sudden they come out squeaky clean. That's what Sonya went through.
Oh man.
And then of course Tim Burton made a remake of that movie, so that it ties all back to Tim Burton. And I will say this right now: this movie's not good, but I would rather rewatch this than that fucking Willy Wonka movie. That movie sucked. Anywho, it's back in the archives. Go check it out, people.
Oh man.
So let's just go ahead and get to the final battle. You discover Raiden's father's an elder god, and Shinnok. Oh, not Shinnok, and Shao Kahn is his brother. Now, we all laugh and snicker at this, but Shao Kahn, as is revealed in Mortal Kombat Deception, is a part of the god species that Raiden is. But he was originally the Raiden of Outworld. He was Onaga's advisor, and he was Outworld's protector. He wanted all the power, so he poisoned Onaga and became the Emperor. So he's immortal. The Mortal Kombat versus DC character bio states that Raiden and Shao Kahn are brothers in that universe. So they reused it. Yeah. So as funny as it is, and maybe you want to snicker at, it was reused in the Mortal Kombat universe. And Shinnok being their father, I thought was kind of like, I always just like from that point on, I'm like, oh okay. So I'm like, why doesn't Shao Kahn call Shinnok dad or talk about him like that? It's like, oh, it's not actually his father and shit like that. That's just, that was just me like putting this headcanon together in the game and shit like that. But they get to the final battle. Sonya pairs off with Ermac, Jax with Motaro, Katana with Mami, and Shao Kahn versus Liu Kang, while Shinnok is just he looks like a really tall, like Emperor Palpatine. Now his face isn't all fucked up, but he's got a black robe with like silver lining on the outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he's like extremely tall. Like it's not his fault he's tall. They just casted this dude as Shinnok. They casted this guy who's like subpar 6 foot, if he's even that, to be Shao Kahn. It doesn't work. Shao Kahn, the guy who plays Shao Kahn in Mortal Kombat 2 and 3 in the video games, was a bodybuilder, but that dude was 5'9", and they superimposed him to make him look bigger in the game. That's why he looks like he's so much taller than everybody else, just because they blew that guy up, his visual. But he's like 5'9", so it's kind of funny that they actually get another short guy to play him in live action, and he just looks short. At least he's cut up though. Like he is muscular. He's not like some fat pudgy guy. It's not like they got Nathan Jones, who's this big former bodybuilder, to play Reiko in the 2021 movie and shit. Well, the only problem is like this new Mortal Kombat 2 coming out. They got this bodybuilder guy who's bald and all tatted up to play Shao Kahn. The dude is fucking huge. I don't know if he's going to be a good actor or not, so we'll find out. I think this is one of his first acting credits. So whoop-de-doo. Yeah, this is Mortal Kombat. This is what happens. You don't get established actors. You got Carl Urban as Johnny Cage, but it's like, man, is he too big for this movie? We'll find out. I mean, the guy who plays Scorpion, who's a pretty big Japanese actor, is really good. He was actually in Avengers Endgame and
Yeah,
shit like that. He plays Scorpion. He did a great job.
I'm curious about Carl Urban being Johnny Cage because that just seems like a strange choice to me, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, like I don't know what choice. I would not have wanted Cody Rhodes or The Miz to play Johnny Cage. They would have just felt extremely.
Yeah,
that would have given it more of a B movie feel that I wanted it to have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who would have been a good Johnny Cage, and maybe Carl Urban is a good Johnny Cage. I mean, obviously we don't know, but it just seems like an odd choice.
Let's see. Hopefully it worked because he's a good actor. So we get paired off into the fight. The Sindel Katana fight's kind of weak. She knocks Katana down. It's because Talisa Soto is not really a fighter, so they can't really do much with her. I'm sure Dana He's still her stunt double in this movie. But they have like 2 kicks and she's down. And then when everybody turns their fights around, she knocks her mother out. And I didn't think about it until in this moment. She pulls her mom up. She has her arms crossed behind her. She pulls her hair up and she goes, "Now, Mom." It's like, oh, okay. Well, this is probably where Pornhub got the idea for mommy porn. It was a joke, Cody. Come on now. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I didn't. I literally thought my phone cut out. I'm like, oh no, what the fuck happened? But no. So she was like, "Wherever you are, you will see the death of Shao Kahn." And then Jax gets his cybernetic arms ripped off, which this follows how it was originally in the game. They were cybernetic enhancements added to his arms. They were hard casings over his arm. They weren't his arms getting ripped off and getting replaced with cybernetic arms. That's not how it works. Because in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, he has a costume where he has regular arms. So that's just what it was. I like that better. I hate when Jack gets his arms ripped off every time they get replaced by mechanical arms. It's like, no, they were mechanical shells put over his arms to enhance his strength. That's all it was. But Motaro rips that off. It looks pretty decent because you only see 2 shots of him walking towards Jax, and then everything else is just you see that tail swinging, you see the feet when they show like a lower shot, and you see him, the guy who plays Motaro. So it's pretty decent. Like I said, it does better than Scorpion King. Just watch Motaro Annihilation on YouTube and look up Scorpion King Mummy, the Mummy Returns. You'll get it. And then Sonya fights Ermac. In the middle of the fight, Ermac does this weird little pose, and this ooze comes out of him and turns into a black ninja. And that's supposed to be Noob Saibot. So she gets tag teamed by 2 guys, one being black. And Jax comes in and says, "Nuh-uh, that's my bitch." And he kills Noob Saibot, where she does a better leg grab head toss than the first movie, and then snaps Ermac's neck. And here we go. Liu Kang and Shao Kahn have a fight. Liu Kang discovers his animality. It turns into a really bad CGI dragon. And then Shao Kahn goes, "Hey, that's pretty cool, but I can do worse." And Shao Kahn turns into this really bad, like, Hydra character.
Big penis Hydra.
Yeah, it's rough. The CGI is bad in this movie. It's bad in this scene, too. Like, literally, the other positive thing I'm going to talk about is the last half of this fight after the CGI shit. Yeah, they go tippling over, and they're both injured because they both land on something. And Liu Kang's like, "You're bleeding just like a mortal, Shao Kahn." And then Shao Kahn looks at his daddy and goes, "Daddy, I did not expect this." And he's like, "I told you there would be consequences for breaking the sacred rules." So, in this scene, I never understood it until I read it last night when I watched the movie. He puts his hands out, and I thought he was calling the elder gods, like to come, like that's why he gets like on his knees and like servitude to them. Because again, I didn't know he was the elder god in that fucking in the in the little 3 visual part where Raiden was talking to them. I didn't know that was him.
Yeah.
So I thought he was calling the elder gods. Evidently, in the novel, when he does that little thing where he puts his thumbs together and sticks his fingers out, he's like he's doing something. At this point, he's trying to hasten the finishing of the merging before the elder gods come. And then the elder gods come, they put their hands on him. In the book, he gets banished to the nether realm immediately. But here, he's like, oh, fuck. That's why he gets on his hands and knees. And he's like, fuck. So at this point, it comes down to if Shao Kahn wins, and then I guess Shinnok's going to be off the hook. But if he loses, they're both fucked. So they show up. I will say this: the Fire Elder God's got a kick-ass voice when he says "Immortal Kombat." I'm like, that sounded pretty dope. I don't know what sound effect they put on it, but I kind of liked it.
The fire elemental and the mercury elemental, because it doesn't look like water; it just looks like mercury.
Well, I mean, I say it's water because she's wearing light blue.
Well, I know it's water.
I think that's
but
what it's supposed to be.
I know it's water, but like the CG just
gotcha.
doesn't look good. It looks like like mercury.
No, you're right. That does look pretty rough on that part. Well, this is the second best, I would say, fight. Is the second half of the Shao Kahn Liu Kang fight. So it actually feels like hard hitting and shit. And there's a lot of really fucking cool, like really good flip, like kicks in this thing. Like the finishing kick in this movie is like chef's kiss. Like it's fucking awesome. Shao Kahn, it's really good. I like it. They do this spot where Shao Kahn throws him against a pillar and then starts kicking him, but he starts doing this like dog noise, like. I fucking when I start doing something like I'll start banging some shit at work. I still make that noise because I remember it in my head. I'm like, it's fucking stupid, but I love it. But no, they do that thing where they start playing the Mortal Kombat theme, and Liu Kang's kicking ass, and then Shao Kahn throws him against the pillar and starts kicking him, and the music stops, and then Liu Kang gets back up and grabs Shao Kahn by the throat. They start playing the Mortal Kombat song, but it's slowed down, and then it picks back up when Liu Kang gains the momentum. So I thought that was pretty cool. Liu Kang nails this fucking kick-ass drop kick that Shao Kahn lands on the steps, and then I think this is one of the best kicks I've ever seen in a movie. Is he does this backflip, double drop kick uppercut to Shao Kahn. Like it fucking looks pretty sick, and I watch it because I watched it twice. That part twice. I'm like, damn, that was good. Like he just does a backflip. He puts both feet together and using it as an uppercut. And it looks like obviously it's movie, so he's not actually hitting it, but it looks like when it hits Shao Kahn, and then Shao Kahn does a backflip landing onto the steps, and that's the last fight. I thought that was just a kick-ass kick, like period. So like the second half of that Shao Kahn Liu Kang fight is probably the second best part of this movie, just like from an action, like it felt physical. It wasn't just like I think somebody like IMDb said there's like 70 flips in this movie.
I believe it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but like that second half of the Shao Kahn fight, there's not really that many flips. It's like just kind of like hard hitting. Like that's what you want when you want to see like fights. It's cool to see that kind of that choreographed shit, but you also want to see like some hard hitting stuff. That's why that Scorpion fight resonates so well in the first movie because it's just like every fucking kick is like bam, you feel it because he's kicking at the camera. And there's a lot of shots of him kicking the camera and shit. So, but yes, after that, Shang Tsung Shinnok gets sealed away. Wow. And then the dragon, I guess it's supposed to be the soul of Shao Kahn, comes out of Shao Kahn's body. The skin turns into like CGI when it peels away and it looks real bad. And then it just disappears and the realms separate. Jackson, Sonya, and Liu Kang, and Katana and Sindel, who's no longer mommified, are there. And then Raiden gets resurrected and he takes Shinnok's side, and that's the end of the movie. So, yeah, man, that wasn't as fun as I was hoping it was going to be.
No,
Like all I could do was make mommy jokes about Sindel.
It's this movie is just. I mean, it's a really bad movie. Just
Yeah. There's no, like, I thought I was going to have, like, some kind of, like, nostalgia talking about it. But other than, my grandmother buying this movie for me and being excited to see how the story continued from the first movie, because I love the first movie. And being okay with it as a kid, not realizing how bad it was until later on in life. Yeah, this movie's pretty rough. Like I said, the three positives I would say about this movie are... Like, my one positive I don't think Cody really agrees with is I think Motaro looks pretty good in this movie. The Smoke Liu Kang fight is pretty good. The best fight, it's pretty good. It's the best fight of this movie. It still would be like the third best fight of the first movie if it was in the first movie. Like, you've only got two really good fights in that movie anyway, but it doesn't compare with those two fights. And then the second half of the Shao Kahn Liu Kang fight, I think at the end of the movie is pretty fucking dope. So that's the only three positives I really have from this movie, and Sindel, because it's Sindel. I've already talked about that plenty of times. I'm only saying that because Savannah doesn't listen to this podcast anymore. So, yeah. Other than that, I mean, that's the only three positives I've really got from this movie. Do you have anything positive, Cody, other than thinking Shiva looked pretty decent?
Not really. I mean, it's just there's so many things wrong with this film. It's hard to pick something out that's actually decent. I mean, the plot is bare bones. I don't like. I mean, I know there's certain things they couldn't help with as far as the actors, but having so many of the actors be different than the ones that were in the first film and arguably being worse wasn't a good thing. I think some of the stuff in it was just even cornier than it was in the first movie. The CG was really bad. The CG monsters at the end, when Liu Kang and Shao Kahn are fighting in like their animality forms or whatever, that reminded me of like CG that you'd see in like a PS1 game.
I mean, it was bad.
So,
well, PS1 was coming out around this time.
Well, PS1 would have come out 96 in the United States, I think, or maybe it's 95. Maybe it's 95 in the United States, and 94 in Japan. But
so it's 97 here.
Yeah,
so I mean, it's not that far away from it.
Yeah, but I mean, it looks like the quality of like a Tekken 3 CGI video or something. You know what I mean? Or not even Tekken 3.
I agree with you.
It's just it's just I don't know, man. This movie's so rough and I don't know. I don't really have anything positive to say about it.
No, I got you. I also say this. I think Jax is pretty funny with his couple of one-liners. I think he easily had the most personality of all of the superheroes or the heroes. I mean, Sonya was okay, but I don't know, man. Part of me. So I think someone said on the Nethercast podcast that they thought that the Mortal Kombat Annihilation Sonya was better than the first Sonya, and I mean, I can kind of see it. She has a lot more personality and shit like that, but it's kind of like this, Jackson and Sonya are pretty decent, so I'll put in that fourth thing right there. I'm just trying, it's easier to say what's positive about this movie than it's negative, because it's bad. I hate that I'm ending the Hanzo Asashi experience as of right now on this movie. And Scorpion, he kidnaps Katana and doesn't even like show back up in the movie. Yeah. I mean, at least he doesn't die, so I'm happy about that.
At least he has that very inspired line of "suckers" before he goes. Just
sucker.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that is pretty funny. It's just funny that they get Ed Boon to come in there, who hated this movie, to just deliver those lines for it. So, yeah, it's pretty bad. I feel, I don't know, man. I wish it was better. Larry Kasanoff said in an interview that the studio, the special effects were not done. The studios just didn't care. They just released it like, it's fine, whatever. They didn't care.
Yeah.
So, and obviously they could tell, but at that point, it put a third film, Mortal Kombat, into developmental hell from like anywhere from like '05 and '04 to 2010. There was supposedly Mortal Kombat Devastation that was in production or pre-production. That was going to be the third movie, and then that one guy, Kevin Tancharoen, um, did his own Mortal Kombat Rebirth movie, like Mortal Kombat Realistic. Thank God it didn't get greenlit that way because I hated what they did with the characters, but it
Mm.
looked cool, and that's when they ended up coming out with Legacy a year later, and then Legacy 2. And there was going to be a movie that came out, and then he got taken off the movie, and then what's the guy that did the Conjuring movies again?
You talking about
James Wan.
James Wan? Yeah.
Yeah, he's the producer of Mortal Kombat 2021. So it took up until 2021 from 1997 to get another movie released.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this movie did some damage to the brand for sure. So it sucked. Anyway, so I definitely I don't recommend it unless you want to watch a bad movie and see if you can have fun with it. Um, I still will probably watch it in the future at some point just because I'm a masochist. Um, yeah, it's just disappointing, man. Like I would watch this movie over Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, though. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'd rewatch this movie over Apocalypse Now. I would rewatch this movie over what was that really depressing Soviet Union Nazi movie we watched
Oh,
for Owen?
damn, what was it? Fuck. I
Oh
can't
God,
remember the name of it.
that one. God, it's something simple too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd rewatch it. You know, ultimately, it's an hour and 30 minutes. I can watch this shit like that. I think. I mean, I think this movie is as bad as what everybody thinks Morbius is. Like Morbius isn't this bad of a movie, but it's pretty bad. Evidently, Madam Web's pretty bad too.
Yeah, apparently.
Um,
Come and
yeah,
See
which
was the
I'm
movie
okay
you were
with.
trying to think of, by the way.
I'll Come and See. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Come and See movie, which is it's a good movie. It's depressing as hell, and they killed a real cow in it, and I'm not a big fan of that. So yeah, I don't recommend it. I'm gonna go ahead and go out on a limb and say Owen doesn't recommend it. Cody, do you recommend it?
No.
Okay. Um, yeah, it's like I said, it's rough. Like I said, we've covered everything Mortal Kombat. That's a movie, so I feel pretty accomplished that I was able to complete this until the next movie comes out. So what was did you get anything from Owen? I saw the text message. I didn't look
Yeah.
at the thread
So,
though.
Owen's our next movie is going to be Owen's movie, and it's going to be the 1988 anime film Akira. Um, so it's apparently like considered one of the best anime films of all time by a lot of people. So I've never seen it myself. So I'm interested in.
Where would we go to watch it?
Oh shit! You know what? That's a good question. We'll talk about that when we get off the air.
Okay. Yeah. And then what movie were you going to pick, sir?
So originally I had picked Mars Attacks, but
Oh yeah. Okay.
I just had some breaking news yesterday, and Wonka is coming out on Max in a couple weeks. So I think I'm going to change my film to Wonka instead, and then I'll do Mars Attacks after that.
Okay.
So that's a movie I haven't seen yet. I'll probably watch it before rewatching it again for the recording, but yeah, I think I'll go with Wonka. So,
all right. So we got Wonka, and then go ahead.
So yeah, I know that we're gonna start doing the Friday the 13th films. Once we're like a few of those in, I gotta look and see when I need to start doing it, but I want to time it to start doing the Nightmare on Elm Street movies myself, so that by the time we reach both the end of Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th, we can do an episode on Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah.
So, but
I
I'll
totally
have to
agree.
kind of.
And then, then we can probably not spin off. But after we get Freddy versus Jason, then we can hit the 2 reboots that they did.
Oh, so that's you want to do it
If you
that
want
way?
to get to that point.
Okay. See, I didn't know if.
Well, it's like if we can get it to order, like so, it's I've got. God, I guess I gotta do fucking Freddy versus Jason Goes to Hell. So I've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I've got 8 movies before we hit Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah,
which is the 11th movie. So yeah, 9 movies. My bad.
Yeah, and then there's
so
7.
I've got 9. I keep Jason Goes to Hell.
Yeah, so I guess my episode that comes after
we got 2 rotations.
Right. So my episode that comes after Friday the 13th Part 3 will be the first Nightmare on Elm Street, because there's 7 original Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And then like you said, we do Freddy versus Jason, then we can do the 2 reboot films or whatever after that.
Yeah, and that will take us. I mean, that's gonna be a lot of commitment from all of us.
Cause, we may we may break it up here and there, part way through or whatever, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's gonna be the kicker. I'm like, man, that's 11 movies, or that's 10 movies for me. And if you break that up over the course of, I get a movie every 6 weeks. So 10 times 6, that's 60 weeks. That's going to be over a year. I'm like, at least I don't have to worry about planning any movies out and shit. So. But yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah, that's what we're going to do, people. So we got Akira next, is what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, and then Owen's Wonka.
No, Owen's Akira, and then I'm Wonka, and then...
Oh, yeah, Cody's Wonka, yeah. And then Friday the 13th, part 2.
Yeah.
For me. And it's gonna be exciting because that one's pretty good. It gets really good in part 2, and then it's really good by 4, and then I love 6. So I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this. All right, everyone. Like, share, subscribe to the podcast. It's not always about boobs and horniness here, but with Friday the 13th coming up, this podcast might be a little X-rated, if you know what I mean. But no, thank you for listening, and as always, and for the final time for now, finish him.